Hey guys, we're here today in Valheim with 5 tips on how to better face the growth creatures or the tar monsters in the game. These new enemies in the plains that were added in Hearth and Home hit pretty hard, almost always come in groups, and debuff your character with a massive slow. No matter what you do, they're probably going to be a challenge to take on, and if you're not fighting at your best, there's a likelihood you will lose. These tips here are not a guaranteed way to beat them or a cheese way to beat them, but rather just a few things that might help you get that slight edge and take them on a little bit easier. Tip number 1 is to use the correct equipment. Throughout most of my time in Valheim, I've been equipped with a shield and most likely a mace, along with some heavier armor in order to withstand any hits that I didn't block. Well, taking on tar monsters kind of make you go in the exact opposite direction. You need to ideally maximize your movement speed, which means to equip lesser armor, like troll hide armor, since any hit that you withstand from them will massively slow your character. This means that we're not looking so much at reducing the damage we take, but rather avoiding the hit overall. And with higher movement speed, we're able to run side to side and outrun their shots most of the time. Along with equipping the right armor, we want to equip the right weapons. I can tell you from my experience that the bow and the knife are incredibly good against the tar monsters because they can normally one-shot them or get pretty close when you get a sneak attack. Couple this with troll armor and you can pick them off one by one, or at least eliminate one in a group before you get into the big fight. Even once you've been detected and during combat, I've noticed that the knife's middle mouse lunge attack does a great job closing the distance on these guys and deals pretty high damage. So do your best to build up your sneak, your bow skills, and your knife skills in order to land some quick sneak attacks and give yourself an advantage out the gate. Tip number 2 is to use spirit damage against them. If you've tried the bow against these mobs, it's likely that you jumped in with the most common arrow type, which is frost arrows, thinking you could slow them down and have an easier time in combat. However, this isn't very effective since the tar monsters are ranged themselves, and slowing one down in a group of 4 isn't going to help you at all. I find the best damage against them is spirit since they are weak to it, and it will deal damage over time. Fighting the tar monsters uses a lot of stick and move, meaning that anytime you do land a shot, it's nice to have some damage over time on them. Silver arrows and a silver knife, or any silver weapon for that matter, does a really good job against these guys and does a lot of damage output in short windows. Since you are focusing on using silver arrows with a bow, this also means you don't need to focus on getting a Jogger Fang. And since tar monsters are immune to the poison damage type, the Jogger Fang is not a necessity when you're doing this. If you do have one already upgraded, it's clearly better than the Huntsman Bow, but if your Huntsman Bow is already rank 4 and has a higher pierce damage output than your Jogger Fang, then go with the Huntsman Bow and maximize your pierce and your spirit damage output. If your knife skill and bow skills are low in general and you prefer to use a mace or a sword and things like that, then simply focus on the spirit dealing damage ones. Don't use a black metal weapon or something like the porcupine. Equip the Frostner or a silver sword and let that spirit damage over time do its work. Tip number 3 is to dodge these tar monsters' attacks as opposed to blocking them. Every time you absorb it with a block, it may negate the damage, but it will shove you back a great distance, along with the fact that you still get afflicted with the tar debuff and the slight poison that they do. Once you get hit with one of these attacks and get slowed, you will get hit with many more. If you have multiple of these tar monsters on you, they will break through that block very quickly, and then you will be taking the damage personally. However, when you dodge forward through these attacks, the invulnerability window will get you past it and help close the distance instead of getting pushed away. This will set you up incredibly well with something like the knife's lunge in order to close the distance even more. It is also possible to land a parry on one of these ranged attacks from the tar monsters, but since they fire them in a chain, parrying one of the hits doesn't stop the other ones from coming at you, and it's impossible to parry the other ones since you'd be currently blocking at that time, which again just leans you more towards the dodge roll mechanic as opposed to the block. Tip number 4 is to attack in the right windows. These tar monsters fire an attack that is a 6-shot chain, and then they will take a 5-second break between these hits. They don't have any melee attacks or any AoEs around them, like the other oozes and blobs in the game, and they just fire this chain shot. This means that you can run side to side and avoid these shots with a little bit better movement speed, dodge through the ones to close the distance that you need to, and then in their 5-second phase, go to town and attack them with the lunge attack with the knife, quick swings, or some bow shots. As soon as you've landed a couple shots in, don't get too greedy. Be ready for them to fire their other chain and get on the move. Getting hit by even one of these tar shots will definitely put you on your heels and likely get you killed. Stay patient, use hit and run tactics, and make sure you do not get greedy and caught with one of these hits. And my fifth tip for taking on these tar monsters is to run. Don't be afraid to just take off out of the area and get them to de-aggro and re-engage in a minute. If you got low on health, just get out of there as fast as you can, get some rest, and come back with full health. If you're able to move in with some sneaking and troll hide armor to land a sneak attack or a backstab and kill one out the gate, then run from the other ones and de-aggro, and then move back in and do the same thing. Take them out really slowly and use tactics. Poison resist me doesn't help too much against these tar monsters, since ideally you're trying to avoid any hit at all, but tactically retreating to fight them in a moment makes health and stamina potions very valuable. If you have some, take them with you so you can get out when you really need to, if you made a mistake or you need to regroup. And make sure you're running before you think you're about to lose the fight, rather than getting put on your heels. Try and stay ahead of these guys, and as soon as it starts going south, get out, regroup, and come back to try and take another one out with a sneak attack. The last thing I want to point out with these growth enemies is if you want to try and use pets to fight them, that wolves are incredibly bad at these fights. Even taking 10 2-star wolves, your wolves stay too grouped up, all get hit by the same AoEs, they have a tendency to swim through the tar and get slowed down, and they get killed fairly quickly. You may win the outcome by taking a few wolves with you, but it's likely not worth the loss of pets that you'll have. If you have a Lox farm running, the Lox can be pretty decent at it, although they move slowly, and one Lox has a shot of defeating an entire group of tar monsters, given the right circumstances. Something to be aware of though is if your Lox dies and your Lox saddle drops into the tar, it will get stuck, and you will not be able to pull it out until you dig up all the tar. So I don't recommend using a Lox to help fight if you're limited on the materials for saddles, or limited on Lox themselves. But if you do have a good functioning Lox farm nearby, then taking a Lox into battle can actually help you. If you run them up to the tar monsters and get off, your Lox will do a lot of damage to these guys and kill them most in one hit, especially if the tar monsters are focused on you. And if they're focused on your Lox, it might give you the perfect opening to be able to get in there and deal some damage with some silver weapons. Now, like I said in the beginning of this video, none of these tips are going to exploit the game, are going to cheese these monsters and make them easy, but hopefully putting one or even multiple together will give you an easier time getting these guys defeated. Don't run into these battles chaotic or thinking that you need to just go in all brutish and Viking style. Be tactical, be slow and patient, and be sure to use your sneak attacks. Hopefully this video is helpful to you and you can get some good tar out of it. Let me know down in the comments if you've had any success fighting these tar monsters and if you've got any tips to share with everyone else about how to take them on easier. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.